Today, I am delighted to welcome Robert J. Hunt. Uh, Robert is the accountability guy and the co author of the book Nobody Cares Until You Do. He is a business owner in the Dallas Fort Worth, Texas area and helps leaders remove the things that keep them from being their best. He's an executive coach and runs CEO groups in the Dallas Fort Worth area since 2013, and he brings experience and wisdom to help people reach their goals. Well, Robert, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Tell the listeners a little bit more, viewers, listeners, whatever you want to do, a little bit more about you. What the background? It says you're in Dallas, and how did you get into what you're doing?
Yeah, I moved to Dallas in 2010 from Southern California, and I came here to do marketing consulting. And I really found that I was not enjoying doing marketing consulting anymore. So I started finding other things that were interesting to me. And I met the guy who had the franchise for these peer groups. And when I heard about what peer groups do, I thought, well, that's my purpose in life. I should go do that. So I jumped into that in 2013 and started leading peer groups. And the beauty of peer groups is you bring these business owners together, CEOs and business owners who've been doing things for a long time, and you put them in a room together and you work on issues. Sometimes we just need encouragement. Sometimes we need to learn from each other or just be challenged from the journeys of each other. And the beauty of what I was seeing through those groups over the years was this camaraderie and this spirit of accountability. And I looked at my own life and I thought, I'm not being as accountable as I'd like to be. And in 2019, we had dug ourselves quite a hole. We ended up owing $90,000 in debt, not counting the house or the cars. And it was too much. It was weighing on us for years and years. It just kept getting worse and worse. And I wasn't living a life of accountability myself. I was looking at my situation and making excuses or blaming things or saying I can't do anything about it or just hoping, waiting, hoping every year it'd get better and every year it got worse. And so I watched these other leaders who were successfully owning their junk. They had problems, they faced challenges, they had all kinds of issues to deal with. But the ones who were truly accountable, they won. The ones who made excuses or kicked it down the road later on or blamed other people, they lost. And I realized that if I'm going to have the life I really want, I need to have accountability for my own life. And so we did. In 2019, my beautiful wife and I decided that we're done trying to wait for things to get better. We need to own it. And so we sold our house and started over. We took all the money, and by April of 2020, we paid off all the debt and started over again. And that began me on the journey of really looking at my life from the lens of accountability. What does it really mean to be accountable? A lot of people think they're being accountable, but at best they're being responsible. We were being responsible. We were not being accountable. And we changed all that. And life is way better when you're accountable.
There you go. I'm putting myself on mute now. I forget to take myself off mute. There you go. Technology. I
Yeah,
don't know
it's
how to
beautiful.
get in the technology field. It's my fault. I take accountability for that.
There you go.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah. So it's an interesting one because accountability means a lot of different things to a lot of people. And I know that like in the listeners will be very well aware of the concept of a RACI matrix that we're using in project management:
Yes.
responsibility, accountability, consulted or informed around stakeholder management, which I have, and I know there are others in the industry that have a uh, it frustrates me, that thing, because someone says, yes, I'm accountable, but the person above me is accountable to someone else for the thing that I'm accountable for as well. And it's as I describe it, it's turtles all the way down. You kind of there's accountability all the way up and responsibility all the way up and down in a flow. And it's kind of how would you describe? And I, from what I've read of your thing, from your point of view, it's about personal accountability for, I assume, actions and positions that you're in. But how would you define it when you talk to people about accountability?
The simplest way to define accountability is you own it. That's it. And we can have a more complicated definition, but the working one is you own it. And responsibility is mean you did something. But accountability is mean you owned it. So when you look at the situation, and we talk about this a lot in the book, sometimes people are bragging about the things they do because they respond to problems. They'll take the blame. They'll say, well, I have all these problems. Well, I own that. Well, in reality, is if you really owned it, you would have preemptively planned to avoid the problem. And so if you're going to be in charge and you're going to say, I'll take the blame, that's responsible. But accountable says people screw up. So what do we do to minimize that? People get burned out, they don't pay attention. How do I change that? How do I affect that? People don't think about things and they don't have plans and it's not repeatable and scalable. So how do we do that? A business owner who just says, I deal with all the problems when they come up, they're exhausted and they can be responsible for all their employees' failures. But if you're going to be a good leader, you're going to proactively train and communicate well and plan for when mistakes happen and how to fix it quickly, how to have systems in line so that not everything's a one-off, it's another one of those. And whenever one of those happens, these are the steps we go through and we systemize and we plan ahead. That is accountability. That is you proactively putting into play the things that you need to get the result you're looking for. And I think that's the big difference. We spend an awful lot of time as a business organization or as a society using the word accountability when at best we're really just being sort of responsible.
That's a really interesting way to give the definition of that, because it kind of, when I think about project management, one of the things we always kind of talk about is that the PM is, it's if it goes wrong, you as a PM you do stand up and you say that's
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
that's the team did if it goes well, that's the team. Do you know what I mean? The team did a great job, and there's always that thing where as a PM you take that, as you say, it's that you're responsible for the results, and that switch of going accountable for it is kind of making it, rather than taking the blame. And I can see that where you're just trying to just deal with the crisis or deal with the problems as a PM, and we can get into that burnout phase, I suppose, of just responding to what's happening. Just
Well,
can wear yourself down.
if you're a project manager, you are supposed to create the steps, the plan, the flow, the details to make something happen. And so if you're going to be truly accountable, you have to think about, okay, I created a plan, but people don't pay attention. They don't like the plan. They don't follow the plan. How do I then proactively plan for the dissenters who mock or ignore the things I work so hard to do? What happens when things change? What kind of cadence will I have to come back and do a quick assessment and adjust because things change along the way? You are proactively creating the world and all the things that need to go into it to get the result you want. That's a different level of project management. It's one thing to say, here's the plan, this is the goals we want to do, here's our budget, here's the things. Here, I laid it all out, here's the players, here who owns this and that, go. But if you know that people aren't going to listen to you and follow the rules, you got to plan for that too. If you know that customers tend to change their minds a lot and they could have problems that deviate along the way, you got to plan for that. Any leader who's not planning for the things that go wrong is not accountable.
Yeah, that's really really bold statement and a really bold way of putting it to people. Yeah, yeah. If you're not trying to avoid those things, that risk management, which is obviously pivotal to project management, not just the planning of it, which is part of it, but that, I suppose, that stakeholder management, the risks that fall at the back of it that are related to sourcing or resourcing and or problem management and stuff like that. That's where I've been caught out, is where I've kind of thought, yeah, everyone's going to do this because we've got a plan. It's written down. I've put it up on the SharePoint. Everyone can look at it, can't
Yeah,
they?
they're all going to follow it exactly like you said. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I
And
kind of how do you, how do you catch yourself when you're doing that though? Because that's something that it's kind of everyone does. Kind of not everyone, but a lot of people do it that way. And as a project leader, an entrepreneur, having that opportunity to catch to spot that you're doing that and you're kind of with the right reasons becoming focused on responsibility rather than accountability.
the number one way to be more accountable in life is to be vulnerable. When you are open and honest with the people around you, they can help you. That's why we put things in writing. A lot of business owners I meet, they don't have written goals, they don't have written plans, they don't even have budgets a lot of time. And the reason they don't want to put it in writing is they can change their mind whenever they want. No one knows they changed their mind. It gives them complete freedom to be unorganized. And as a result of that, everyone just kind of panics, wondering what's coming next. So if you are going to be accountable, you invite people in by saying, here's the plan. And here's my backup plan. And here's how we're going to train against it. And here's what we're going to do when people don't follow. And here's how we're going to get people excited about it. And you have done all these things and it's in writing and you talk about it. And then you allow people to pick holes in it. What happens if they do this for a while, but then they quit later on? We go, well, I don't know. Okay, well, then let's plan for that too. And so by being vulnerable, you allow people to see these things so you can get better. Real accountability invites other people to be a part of it so that you can truly go forward because no one can hold anyone accountable. Your boss can't hold you accountable. You can't hold other people accountable, but you can hold yourself accountable if you want to, and you can create a world where people want to be accountable. But if I say, Nigel, I want to have this done by Wednesday, and you go, okay, great. And then come Wednesday, you don't do it. What do I do? Fire you? I can't fire everyone who doesn't do everything. So when people don't do stuff, they're not accountable. And by me asking you to do it, or you saying you're going to do it, you weren't accountable. It's only when you put in the proactive steps towards what you know you're supposed to get done that you are engaging in accountability. And when you want to be accountable, you invite people in because it helps you get better. You learn, you have motivation, a little bit of peer pressure to keep going. That vulnerability is essential.
It's interesting because what makes me think there is that you're going to get, and what I've felt in those scenarios where I've both been at both ends of that scale where I've been talking to people and say, right, I need this. When are we going to get this done by? And it's going to be that date, and then we get there and we get to it, and they say, well, yeah, I've done it, but there's this, and this to do as well, which hadn't been mentioned and was part of, in my mind, was part of what they were going to do. And I'd suspect in some cases it is part of their mind, but then it didn't manage to get it, and it can be. And I've been on the other side where someone said, "Can you get that done?" Yes, and then other things get in the way, and I didn't quite get to do it, and I tried to do it quickly, and I'll freely admit I have a situation where the priorities change a lot,
Sure.
and
And life.
but yeah, but then I'm also in a situation where I will get to a point where the night before I'm going, oh, I haven't done this, and then end up just rattling through and get something done. Even this week, I've been in that situation where someone asked me to do something. I said, yeah, I should be able to do that. I didn't. I wasn't committed to getting that done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then I thought I better had, and I did. In the end, it wasn't used, but by the same thing, that's kind of for me there. Whilst I did it, I didn't feel like I owned that
You were
action.
responsible. You were
Yeah.
responsible. You got it done. Was the quality of your work that great in the last minute of panic work? Could it have been better? Could you have missed some part of it? Could you have done something better? Could you articulated more? Often we are rewarded by ineptness. And when we
Mm.
get it done, we're like, yay, I did it. So I can stay up and party all night, get up at 6 in the morning, crank it out, turn it in, and it works. And it goes on for so long that we just kind of go, everything's cool because I'm responsible. But to be accountable, I would say, look, this is going to take some thought. And I need to really be on top of my game and think clearly. So I'm going to block out an afternoon where my brain is fresh. I'm going to turn off the phone and all the distractions. I'm going to dedicate 1 hour to just clear thought. That is proactively creating what is the best result that you want to get. This works in our health, in our marriage, in our faith, in our finances, everything we do personally. That's the start of us learning what accountability looks like here. So I bring that level of accountability to work.
Yeah. It's when the thing I find difficult is that we may think that we're bringing accountability. We may think that we're doing the best we can. But that's kind of not being honest with each other, with ourselves. And I think it's probably something deep down where you kind of, I'm not committed to this thing that I'm doing, whether it be a task, whether it be a project, whether it be the department you're in or whatever. You'll be kind of going, yeah, I'm turning up, I'm doing it, I'm doing an all right job. You might even be doing a better job than everyone else in that department, but you're not
Your
vested
best.
in its
Yeah.
success.
Yeah, sure.
I suppose two bits of that question is one, what what do you do about that for yourself? But also if you're in a situation where you've got a project to deliver or a team to bring into, how do you get that investment? I'm I'm going to let you answer it rather than me try and answer it for myself
Yeah.
there.
Remind me when I forget what the first one was. I'll do the second one first. The way that you can get I forgot what the second one was by the time I teed up the answer. It was The first one was changing your attitude, but the second was getting everyone to help you, or
Well, getting other people, when you look at people and you know that there are people who aren't as invested
that's what it
in
was.
what you're doing as you need to. So a
Yeah.
project's a great example, and I've got projects where I've um, got the team together, and we've gradually got this um, ownership of the result. Yeah, them feeling part of having that result and being there. I've had projects where we've successfully delivered, and the guys have worked really hard, but there's no acknowledgement that they felt that it was worthwhile. Do you know what I mean? It's that how do you engender that feeling of ownership of those results
Yeah.
through it?
The beauty of accountability is it has its own reward. Accountability brings freedom and peace and joy because the reward is that you are doing what you want to do. If all you want to do is make money, you probably could have another job because whatever job you have, there's another job that pays more. So you must
Yeah,
be doing part of what you're doing because you enjoy the thing you do. And when I want to do the thing I want to do it because I like doing this thing, whether it's project management or running peer groups or doing a bakery, whatever your thing is, you have to have some motivation behind excellence in your own life. There has to be something inside you that tells you this is why I get out of bed. It's your purpose. And if you're going to be in the role and you're just going to exist, it's boring and mundane and it gets old really quick. But if you have purpose behind what you do, it drives you to be your best because you can be your best. That is its own reward. And when you take accountability for things, you gain the power to do whatever you want to do. When you're not accountable, you're a victim and you blame and make excuses and say you can't do anything about it or just wait and hope it works out. That's victim mentality. That's miserable living. I lived like that a long time. And I see the contrast. When I take ownership of things, I have the power to change them. It might be hard, it might be a long journey, but it's hard being a victim. So why don't I just move towards a lifestyle where I actually own it, where I have joy and satisfaction of completing and getting the results I really want? And I get come back to vulnerability again. That's where you invite people into your journey and say, I'm just feeling like this. I don't want to do this. Or I feel burned out. Or I'm angry because my boss is a jerk and I'm not going to try as hard as I used to. All those things that are real things, you need to talk it out with people and say, okay, well, just because your boss is a jerk doesn't take away your quest for excellence. You still want to be proud of the work you do. It still reflects you. You don't want to look like someone who can't do their job or doesn't know what they're doing. So by inviting people in when they have those moments where you hit the wall, they can help talk you through those moments of wanting to give up or to do less than excellence. And I think there's another word that we have to use differently. A lot of times we don't ask for help because when I say I need your help, I look weak or inept or I feel like I owe you. So instead of saying I need help, change it to I want help. I want your help. You're very good at this. Nigel, if you did this, I could do this in half the time. I want your help because you really know how to do this. And when you do it, it's going to be we're going to both look great. Now you feel good because I praised you and told you how awesome you are. I feel better by inviting your help into my life. I don't feel weak and needy. I feel like I'm smart that I've allowed you to help me. So I do it in a way that I can accept your help. Where our egos are so strong, the word need is a very big brick wall. Change I need help to I want help. And I want your help because I want to rock this. I want to do great in this project. And I know that by you and I talking it through, it's going to be much better. And then you get the best of both.
so that's a really powerful, for me anyway, that want and need thing, because it is um it really makes sense there, because I can see how I would um I've been in situations where I've felt that I've just and I've had these conversations with managers before now afterwards, is that I've struggled with projects, or I've struggled with a customer, or with a team because of my role and position. I've always thought I have to deal with it. I have to get it done, and I
Mhm.
have to shoulder the burden, and it's that responsibility thing. And actually, they said to me, "You should have come to me and said, 'Help me.'" Now, I know the reason. One of the reasons I didn't is because I'm thinking, well, if I do that, they think I'm crap.
Yeah,
Think I'm
yeah,
terrible at it, and
yeah.
therefore, as you say, I'm weak. And I'm going, oh, I'm having to ask for help. But actually, that situation of, and I've had some mentors that have helped me with these separately, where I've gone, right, can you, 'cause I hit a load of burnout and I was out of work for 5 months off ill because of stress.
Hmm.
Uh, and it was because I shouldered everything and I thought I was the one to do it. And I should have just put my hand up and said, can't do this.
Yeah.
And actually, that accountability for the success, I can see there where I can sit back and go, right, actually, I want you to help me because I want this to be a success.
Yeah.
And I can see that the way it's going, it won't be a success. And
Let's
so if I've
apply
got,
accountability to that whole thought process you just had there. If you know that you're hitting burnout, if you're going to be accountable, what's the wise thing to do? You're going to invite someone into that journey and say, I'm starting to max out. And because otherwise, if you have a breakdown and you literally have a stress breakdown and you can't finish it, the company's screwed. Where was he in this project? I don't know where he is. We got to figure out and pick up and start running off. We're going to have to just start all over again. So the accountable thing to do would be to say, hey, I want your help. This is more than I thought it would be, and I want to do it really well, and I want to do it on time. So I want your help. That is being accountable. We might use the word responsible, but that's not. Responsible would be you got it done one way or the other. But accountable is the proactive creating of the best situation to get the result you really want. And that's where you look at everything you do and you say, well, I could do this, but it's not being accountable to the situation or the outcome I want if I just do it by myself.
yeah, the outcome, yeah, that outcome idea of focusing on what is the outcome that you have accountability for
Yeah,
when you
not just the project being done, but the process. You're
yeah,
accountable for the process because you're going to train someone else or someone's going to take over for you someday. And if we've created processes that are ridiculous that can only be done by you working 20 hours a day for weeks at a time, then we've built a failure because when you leave, because you have a breakdown, you leave the company, the next person they hire is going to go, this is ridiculous. I'm not doing this. And they're going to quit right away. So you're not actually helping the company when you suck it up and work super long hours and don't tell anyone how long it's taking. You're actually making a very weak link. So you're not being accountable to allowing us to run the business. What's the goal? The project you're managing is a piece of a goal for a thing. And if you take that and do it wrong, i.e., not optimized so it's scalable and repeatable, you're not helping the company. You might help that one project, but that project's being done to help the company. So you're really only being short term responsible, not long term accountable.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it's just that. Yeah, it's a nice lens to look at it because as I say, I have struggled with that, and I imagine, and I see it a lot where you'll have people who are heroes in projects or heroes in areas, and they're the one person that everybody always goes to
Yeah.
and becomes that single point of failure. Is always the
Yeah.
spot as everyone talks about, and I've seen it in past roles, past organizations where there'll be one person who is maybe a temporary contract worker who is pivotal to everything going on. And then suddenly they find a new contract and could disappear. And they've got 2 weeks' notice. And they give you 2 weeks' notice and they're off they're gone. Now, as someone running that team, you should be sitting there going, we can't be reliant on this person. The fact that they are like, you can't be reliant on anyone because a
You
month's
can't
notice
rely
and
on
people,
anybody.
you've got to
Yeah.
have backup. But when you've got such a weak link of
Yeah.
that person, may be a genius and they may be brilliant and they may be really dedicated, but they are self-interested at the end of the day. They will be. And if
And
they,
everybody
and
is.
yeah, because you'll overload those people sometimes.
Every one of your employees has the potential to leave at a moment's notice. Today, I had two meetings with different CEOs. Each one of them had people that gave them very short notice and left. And even if they gave them a 1 year notice, I'm telling you, the kind of things that they've built on that person's load would not be learned in 1 year. And so you're going to suffer. You're not being accountable to the fact that in running business, people leave, people die. People get sick for long periods of time. So you're not creating a business that is accountable if you just say, well, whenever a problem comes up, we'll fix it. That's responsible. And responsibility has a very weak success rate. And there's all kinds of problems, and we lose stuff through the cracks. And the ripple effect that goes out to unhappy other coworkers, to unhappy customers and vendors, and the money that we lose that we don't measure, all that stuff. And you think, well, we lost this guy, so we survived, so everything works out great. And you just year after year do the same thing. No one is proactively creating a level of a process that acknowledges all the stuff that goes wrong. We should know that employees are going to quit. We should know this, and we should build in a documentation process that tracks it and standardizes it so that it's ABC all the time. And we know where someone's at any moment. We could jump right in with whoever works the team. Anyone else could jump in and take over because we thoroughly documented, we follow the same procedure. That kind of stuff is being accountable.
Yeah. It echoes there with me, and I don't know if you'd agree that what we're talking about there in some ways is a strategic thinking versus tactical thinking. And from a point of view of you're looking at what's coming down in the future, trying to avoid what's going to happen, whereas your tactical thinking is what's the problem today? How do we get past it? It's kind of, oh, we can't afford to train Joe because that'll take Jenny's time away from doing what she's doing, and we need Jenny to do that, and therefore we keep Jenny in this bubble of not being disturbed, and then suddenly Jenny goes, and Joe's there going, well, I don't know how to do it. But you kind of got to take the pain to get the pleasure. I remember someone talking a while back I spoke to about planning projects, and they had a project where they'd gone to they'd been asked to take over this project and lead it and fix it. And I want to say it was Colin Ellis who was on the show, but I might be wrong. And it was one of my interviewees anyway. And they basically said to the manager there, well, what I need to do is fly all the team together. We need to spend a week to 2 weeks planning and replanning this project to deliver it. And the point they said, well, we can't do that. We haven't got time to spend that time replanning it. And his answer to that was, well, if we haven't got time to replan it, we're not going to deliver it on the timelines that we've got. If you haven't got room in the schedule to reset and set your plans, you're already dead in the water.
Yeah, right.
So again, it's the same sort of thing, isn't it? It's different context, but that if you haven't got time to think longer term, it's even
You'll
more
never get out
important.
of it.
Yeah.
You'll never get out of it. And this is
No.
where vulnerability comes in. If I really want to change something, I have to invite people in to look at the ugliness of my business. Because if I just show you how much money I'm making, you're like, oh, you're doing great. But if I show you how much I lose every year, how much I waste every year, this project was budgeted at 1.2 million, came in at 1.7. I only made $100,000 on this project. I should have made $800,000. We don't look at that side. We don't show that side. And so people, they become false sense of security. But if you really, really, really want to change and you see these problems happening over and over again, you're not being accountable as a leader to the fact that this happens if you don't invite someone in to say, we've got to look at this and figure out what's going on and proactively create the things that are required to avoid these problems we see all the time. And we don't want to have people in our business. So we don't tell them the dark side. We just tell them the good stuff. And we're making a lot of money, but we don't admit the long days and nights and angry employees and frustrated customers and delays and loss of margin. We don't brag about that part.
Yeah. That's interesting because I'd like a view on that really, is because I've seen there's two points here. One, as a middle manager, like as a executive or as a business owner, those kind of ability to be vulnerable, that ability to invite in that external support is much more within your power. You know what I mean? If you've got someone running a 200 people in their organization, they have a pretty much carte blanche to do what they need to do when they need to do it there. When you're a middle manager, you've got a project, you're doing something like that, there's more. I know there's a situation where you put your hand up saying we've got a problem here, and then your managers go, no, we haven't got a problem. Our department's fine. Don't worry about our department. Don't go raising your hand. And you're in that position of politically, you can't out where you are because people go, no, that project's not red. It's yellow. It's a little bit. You get, and I've been in conversations where that's happened. So what sort of things would you suggest to those guys in those positions of what can they do?
I think back to when Alali took over Ford. I can't remember his first name, but he was the CEO of Boeing, and he went over to Ford. And when he went to Ford, they had this yellow green light system too, and everything was green. And every meeting they got together, they all said everything's green, and nobody was meeting dates, and everything was over budget, and everything was bad, but everybody was green. And they had built a culture where everyone was afraid to say anything was wrong because they get fired. And
Yeah, I've seen.
this guy came in and he said, "How can we all be on green and all be behind and all be over budget?" And one guy spoke up and said, "We're out of control. We're not green. The honest truth is we're red." That guy became the heir who replaced that CEO because he had the audacity to speak truth. This is where vulnerability is required. We want to look like we're great and successful. You can ride that ship all the way down to the bottom of watery grave. But if you're willing to be vulnerable and to invite people in and be honest, you'll have change. So you need someone who is going to lead that charge. I would hope it would be the CEO or owner of the company, but it may not be. If you look at sports teams that are famous, there's often a captain who really holds the team together. And Michael Jordan was a great basketball player who had a great coach, and the guy who really kept it together was Scottie Pippen. He was the captain. He wasn't the star in the limelight. He was just one of the team players. But he, in his own initiatives, created a unity that changed the culture of that team that lived in the shadow of Michael Jordan. Whatever role you play at a company, you have a pivotal opportunity to speak up and talk about what's true and right, what needs to be done. And if they don't listen to you, go work somewhere else. But if you want to be there, this is where people make excuses. This is why I wrote the book about accountability. People blame and make excuses and say they can't do anything about it or wait and hope it gets better. Those are the four traps that you get stuck as a victim when you look at the world of accountability. If you're somewhere and you're telling them, this isn't working, this is wrong, we need to change it, and they don't want to change, go work somewhere else. And don't play a victim. Go take your passion to be excellent somewhere where it's appreciated. But certainly as a leader, they have the opportunity to create a culture of accountability by the way they live.
Yeah, that's great advice, and I know I felt where it's a hard emotional thing and it's a risk. You're taking risks if you're stepping away from it's what you know into the unknown, and that makes it really hard to do. But as you
Yeah,
say, if you're taking
it is.
accountability for the result, I heard it's a podcast called, and I don't know if I'm ever going to go one of these shows without actually mentioning this other podcast that, in theory, I should treat as a competitor, but I don't because they're much better than me. Manager Tools, and I think they're from your region of the world, around Dallas way. One of them certainly is, and they talk about when people go to work and say, "Oh, I really don't want to be here. Hey, I don't want to be at work," and they're kind of, "I'd prefer to be playing golf." And the comment that Mark, the ex-military guy, kind of go, "Well, you're lying because if you really didn't want to be here, you're a grown-up. You can decide not to be. Now there are consequences
Right.
of not turning up that day, but you can choose to. You have a choice. You have. We all have that choice, and we all have that choice to put the hand up and push against it or not against it. I'm not. Don't want to make light of how hard that is and how big a risk that can be and how massive. But you see it quite a few situations where people do that sort of scenario and actually make a massive difference
But let's
to.
back up a little bit on that. If you're going to really be accountable, you don't wait till you're pissed off and don't want to go to work that day. You start doing it months and months and months ahead. You say, this is not the way to run this project. We're wasting money here. This is not how you do this. And you continue to speak up ahead of time. You're doing the things, you're taking accountability for the job that you want to have. I don't want to work at a place where I'm not appreciated for the skill you hired me for. You hired me, you interviewed me, you told me this is what I'm going to do, you hired me to do this, let me do my job. And if they're not going to let you do that, you speak up and you challenge it. There is no risk in that because you don't need that job. Listen, people who've been out of work for a long time, they still survive. They still had food. They still lived in a house. Life went on. It sucked, but you survived. I would rather take the risk to live the life I want than to walk safely to the grave because there's a lot of opportunities out there. And if you're going to be accountable for your life, you have to own it proactively. by saying, I'm not going to work at a place where I'm not appreciated, but I'm going to tell them along the way, hey, we could be better. Let me help. I want to do this. And if they don't want you there, then go somewhere where they do want you. But again, are you blaming? Are you making excuses? Are you saying you can't do anything about it? Or are you just waiting and hope it gets better? Those are the things of a victim. Don't be a victim. Own it. It is much, it's a much better life when you're owning it.
Yeah, yeah, I get that. That's really good. So, obviously, we mentioned it before. You created a copy of the book, of your book. I've got my. Where's my brain gone? What's it called again?
Nobody
You'll remember.
cares.
Nobody cares. So, Why did you create the book? What drove you to do that? And tell us a little bit about it. Give us a little bit of background
Yeah.
and things like that.
During 2020, we watched the whole world just get angry and point fingers at each other and hate each other. And it was just so messed up. And we really felt that we needed to help people understand what accountability looks like because we've lost that as an art. We've lost the idea of accountability in our society. Core at the idea of accountability is that your actions have consequences. Most people don't think their actions have consequences anymore. You could say horrible things on social media. No one drives over to your house and punches you in the face. You just get away with stuff all the time. You don't work. You're supposed to be at work, but you're not. I have these CEO clients who tell me about people who have a job and they have another job, full-time job at the same time, two full-time jobs, and they're lying about stuff, and everyone gets away with it, so they just keep doing it. We've lost the spirit of accountability in our personal lives, in our marriages with horrible divorce rates, in our finances where people are super in debt and living under the weight of their debt. They're angry at God. They've turned away from their faith. They don't love their kids or their family anymore. This whole world just kind of pissed off. And so we thought we've got to help people step back and see that life is way better when you have accountability in it because it's freedom and power to live the life you really want. We've been talking about it in our peer groups for years. And so my client, Salem Thine, is also my friend, he pushed me and pushed me that we should write this book. And so we finally committed to do it in 2020. We took on the task. In 21, we got started. In 22, we got it published. And the whole quest is just to help people understand personally and professionally what it looks like to be really accountable and how much better life is when you're.
Brilliant. Um, and so, what are the sort of key that people will want to buy the book, obviously? But what are the sort of tips in there? Is anything that you kind of how have you approached it? Give it a little bit of an idea of how you approach the structure of what you've got there and how it helps people.
Yeah, at the core of it is just recognizing that no one can hold you accountable. You have to hold yourself accountable. But that when you choose to be accountable for your whole life, you gain the power over your whole life. My wife and I felt helpless and hopeless in those days where we were heavily in debt. But when we resolved that we weren't going to live like that anymore, there was hope. And the journey to get there was hard and it took time and it was definitely awkward and humbling and it sucked. And we didn't like doing it. But we got to the other side. We were very thankful. And so we teach you in this book how to be aware of the traps that we play as a victim in the world of accountability. When you get to that pivotal moment where you say, look, nobody cares. Nobody cares if you're fat, broke, unhappy, mad at God, you got a horrible job. Nobody cares until you care enough to do something about it. And when you do care enough to do something about it, there is a very prescriptive process to go through. And that's the second half of the book where we talk about acknowledge the reality, embrace the suck, find a solution, and make it happen. And we outline how to do that and the tools that go with that. It's not that hard. If I can do it, anybody can do it.
That sounds excellent. And I know that there's you've got an assessment there where you can sort of like that you
Yeah.
mentioned to me that people can take that can just kind of give them a bit of a view of how they're a little bit of I had a go at it earlier, like the spider diagram approach of giving you that where the areas that you can highlight where you're feeling a little bit more where you need to maybe look at and develop, isn't it? And kind
Well,
of
that's back to vulnerability.
yeah,
When you take that assessment and you be honest with yourself, really, really honest, like when I got married, what did I think my marriage would look like? What does it look like today? So score it on that. When I look at my finances and I thought, yeah, I'm 61. How much money did I think I'd have today at 61? Well, score it according to that. Whatever your thing is, compare it to what you dreamed or want it to be, and then score that. And then if you're not happy with something, go, okay, why? And that's when you see you blame or make excuses or say there's nothing I could do about it, or you just wait and hope. And that's victim talk. And when you now see it, you think, oh my gosh, I'm being a victim. And we say the word victim on purpose because that's a horrible word. No one wants to be thought of as a victim. But when you say it that way, you realize, okay, I don't want to be a victim. What am I going to do? And that's when you own it. And that's when you begin to make the changes you need to live the life you really want.
That's brilliant. It sounds fascinating. So, if people want to, well, a couple of things. If there was anything you wanted to mention before we cut, because I know you've got to scoot to another call.
Yeah.
Let me know. And if people want to carry on this conversation, what would you say is the best way to get in touch with you or find out more info?
Well, the thing I'll share with people is it's our theme for the year is we're having intentional living is our theme for the 2025. And I'm going to encourage you, don't be lazy. Because lazy is another one of those offensive words that people would hate it if you were identified as someone who's lazy. But when you're not doing what you know you should be doing, or when you're doing that thing which you should not be doing, you're being lazy. And we don't need to be lazy. It is as simple as hanging the coat up or closing the door, or turning the light off, but we get lazy. And so I want you to look at your life and don't be lazy. Decide this is the life I want to lead. I'm not leading the life I want. Do something about it. Don't be lazy. If you want to continue the conversation, you go to nobodycaresbook.com and you can order a book from us. It's available on Amazon and Barnes and Nobles and all the booksellers all around the world. And you can buy it from them. But if you want to talk to us, go to nobodycaresbook.com. You can send us a satisfaction. You can fill out your satisfaction assessment and then email it to me and say, here's my satisfaction assessment. I'm being vulnerable. I want to let you know I'm not happy with this and I'm going to work on this. And I will email with you and I will encourage you because I read every single email we get. And I want to encourage people on their journey because we changed our life by being accountable. And I want that for others too.
Brilliant. Well, Robert, thank you for giving me so much time and a lot to think about. Actually, there's a lot scooting around in my head, and my whiteboard where I write stuff up on there is kind of going to have something. So hopefully I'll get a bit of accountability. And then immediately I was thinking I need to get accountable for sorting out my headphones, as we had the problem at the beginning, rather than blaming Microsoft as being a victim of them, as I said earlier this morning. Yeah, cool. So immediately I'm starting to be able to understand and apply it. So hopefully everyone out there will be able to think about that. And even if it's just that small thing of just thinking about not being a victim, I think that's going to be a fantastic thing to do. So again, thank you very much for coming on the show. And I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day.
Thank you so much.
Cheers. So I have a number of sponsors, affiliate links in the way that it's set up that have kindly allowed me to share their services, really. The first one is Mike Clayton, and Mike runs online PM courses, and it is a great resource for getting those fundamentals of project management trained, reasonably priced, and Mike presents it in an accessible and clear manner. You can check out some of his videos on his YouTube channel and kind of give you a view of where they are. But the code for that, if you go to nigelcreaser.com/online PM courses, all one word, lowercase, that'll redirect you to it. There's varying different levels that you can buy. You can buy individual courses, you can buy pathways as well, if you like. And I get a kickback off those. Mike kindly shares me that. So if you do jump on and use it, I hope you find it really useful. I think he has money back guarantees and things like that as well. So there's very limited risk on that. So jump on that, and that again, it's nigelcreaser.com/online PM courses, and enjoy.
Well, it's goodbye from me, Nigel Creaser, and it's goodbye from him, the Sunday Lunch PM. Goodbye.